WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American here in Germany. Today I have as my guest
Brendan Carty from Killowen Distillery.
Excellent, excellent that we could make this work. Look, the first people are actually joining already. Greg from Paris is here. He says, "Hi, Jason. I might be interrupted by the phone for important reasons, but now I'm here. Curious of this new distillery." Very, very nice. So tell us a little bit, how did this young guy start his own little micro distillery, which we can almost see behind me, right?
Yeah. Why did I not just go up there and meet you? I don't know. But yeah.
We can see it like this way. Yeah, very, very good. Good.
So, yeah, we've been distilling now for just over a year in Killowen, and I suppose we've made a lot of noise in that small amount of time. I've been planning the distillery for 3 years beforehand as well. And ever since I was in Australia, I'd made the decision, that I should start a distillery.
Did Lark inspire you, or who inspired you?
Lark, more this guy here. This would be my biggest inspiration. Move it over that way. So this is Belgrove Distillery. So small distillery, very honest, full of integrity and brilliance. Fantastic whiskey. It's my favorite whiskey. Made by Peter Bignell. It's a small craft distillery. He operates off a 500-litre still. He's starting to expand now, and all of his own rye. And in fact, a lot of the way he makes whiskey is similar to the way they make whiskey in Ireland traditionally, with large amounts of unmalted produce. And so he also flame feeds his stills, which is an amazing thing. So I wish more people were doing it.
Okay, excellent. So what's your history? Tell me a little bit about your qualifications. What started you? Yeah.
Qualifications. Well, I suppose I do have a certificate in distilling, but that was a more recent thing. Prior to that, I studied architecture for 8.5 years. So I became chartered, and the recession happened in Ireland. So I moved to Australia, and there was plenty of good work there. It was a beautiful place, and I tasted a whiskey out there, which, in my opinion, was just as good as one of Ireland's best whiskies. A 24-year-old pot still, in my opinion. And this 2-year-old whiskey, which we can see behind me, was just as good. And I was trying to figure out, why is something so young so good? And so I went down to Tasmania and tasted the whiskey and met Peter. And Peter showed me a few things, and we've been in contact since. So I thought, Irish whiskey, we need to bring some of that integrity into the Irish whiskey industry. And also, one of the main drivers was to create pot still whiskey that I wanted to taste. Pot still whiskey, in my opinion, could be much better, and I think it could be if it was more historically accurate. And
now,
what
tell
I mean
us a little
is,
bit, what's the difference between single malt and pot still?
Well, single malt means 100% malt. It's a good idea. I think it came about over the last century or so, more so than pot still did. It kind of filled in the void, if you like, that pot still used to have. The pot still was the whiskey of choice throughout the world, and it wasn't brandy, it wasn't anything else. It was pot still, and single malt filled in that void for a number of reasons. Prohibition being one of them. Economic war between Ireland and the UK. Second World War, probably the final nail in the coffin. But so basically it's the mash bill. 100% malted barley is a single malt. If you use a little bit of unmalted barley and oats and rye and wheat, you get a pot still. But more importantly, the rules that govern pot still, in my opinion, are a little bit misled at the moment. They favor a monopolized industry, unfortunately, and they're not entirely historically accurate.
This morning, and he was part of the process of actually setting up pot still, and he didn't even want it. Actually, he said he was like, no one needs pot still, no one likes pot still, and they actually because they know that convinced him, yes, we need it. I was like, wow,
pot still is a superior whiskey by far. It's much more complexity in the palate, and in fact, Scotland made pot still for a very long time, and some of the some of the honest distilleries nowadays are coming back to that pot still culture. You know, they're using mixed mash bills, but yeah, oats in particular was a huge part of the pot still history, and thankfully it's starting to come back now. But oats and unmalted barley, rye and wheat have just as much part in whiskey as malted barley does.
Well, the people in America would agree with you.
Indeed, yeah.
All right, so we have 30% malted barley and 30% unmalted barley and 5% of something else that you can add. I think it's the definition right now of pot still.
Exactly, yeah. When in reality, if you look at it, all of the historical records show that you had up to 30%, say, oats, rye, and wheat. In fact, there's always something lying around here that would help me to prove that, because we're always looking at it. But
look, we have Irish Whiskey Magazine in the house. Great to see you.
Good man, Sergius. How are you? Sergius probably heard me singing off this hymn sheet before.
Don't worry, a lot of people haven't, so that's just great that you're here. Actually, I should be visiting you at your distillery at this moment, but the big bad C word got in the way, and so
exactly.
But we'll talk about that in a second when you can tell me why we postponed our live stream a little bit. So show us some ingredients, please.
I didn't.
What were you looking for? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Bear with me. Yeah, here it is. So this here was sent to me by. There's a lot of people in the industry or in the Irish community that have a huge interest in this. So Charles Roach sent me this stuff, which is great. It's a mash bill from Bourbon Distillery. There's also Brian and Finan from the Irish Whiskey Society that are doing fantastic work. And sorry, 1 second to get this guy out of the road.
Oh yeah, put on the shelving unit. That's great.
He likes it there. So if can we see this at all? So I'm going to hold this right there, and
let's get a little bit bigger for you.
Yeah. So this is a mash bill from Bourbon Distillery in Cork, and if you look at the averages at the base there of the malted barley, the oats, the wheat, and the rye, you'll see that the oats, the wheat and the rye come to an average of about 30%. And
what year would this be?
Then you've got like 38% unmalted barley, and then you've only got about 33 to 34% malted barley. So what does that tell you about how pot still was actually made? And so it's fascinating. And so the Killowen's about bringing that back and bringing those broader mash bills, which are much more complex, much more full-bodied, much more spice, and much more viscosity, back into the mainstream industry, instead of it being something that very few people can actually get a hold of nowadays, if at all. It's something that is part of our culture. In fact, we've been making pot still whiskey this way for longer than we haven't, if you know what I mean. So
I totally agree. Yeah, very good. So David, yes, these pot stills are actually your originals. Now, Brendan, tell me a little bit about your equipment, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, so those are the only flame-fed stills in operation in Ireland, I understand. It's dangerous to use flame to heat your whiskey, to heat your spirit. For obvious reasons, alcohol's explosive. Although we have anti-explosive lights and as part of our building regulations, we managed to have flame-fed stills because, well, first of all, we're still part of the United Kingdom in County Down, so there's precedent for it in the mainland United Kingdom.
So for us ignorant people, Northern Ireland.
That's right. Yeah. And, so we've got flame-fed stills there, which add, in my opinion, flame creates another dimension of flavor. Just in the same way peated would add another dimension of flavor, or else unmalted produce as well as malted produce would add another dimension of flavor. So flame's essential. In fact, it creates burning at the base of the still. The amino acids and the sugars caramelize together for what's known as the Maillard reaction. And it's a culinary term basically for caramelization. So it's that burny note that we all like in our foods, like searing of steaks or the top of a creme brulee or any of that. Even a bit of burnt toast sometimes is nice. So that in your whiskey creates another dimension of flavor and much more body. And as well as that, if you see behind you, we've got these big chunky condensers. They're called worm tub condensers. So the only people still using those in Ireland as well. They're yeah.
So well, I'm right behind me, basically, those pots, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're highly inefficient things. I was working, I done a little course over in Scotland in a similar size distillery for a while, and we were getting a litre a minute off the same size of still. For us, we're getting 350 mil a minute, which is tiny by comparison. So our stills are lit at 7 a.m. and they're turned off at 8 p.m. So that's how long the stuff's sitting in there. So there's plenty of time for burning in the still as well. And those worm tubs allow for a different condensation as well. So whenever the condensate is turning into the distillate, it carries with it a huge amount of fusel oils, which are absolutely full of flavor, you know, and all of those notes are then transferred into whiskey, which creates proper oily pot still whiskey, you know. Great stuff.
So at the moment you can't sell anything or any of your pot still whiskey because it's not yet 3 years old, but you have something like Irish moonshine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's in here. Yeah. So this here, because you can see there's not much left in it, because it's very enjoyable. So this is potching. So if I hold it to this side, you can see it better. So potching is the Irish for little pot. So it's Ireland's oldest native spirit. It also has a GI protecting it, but like the other GI, it's
geographic indicator, right?
Yes, sorry about that. I should explain that. It is another geographic indicator which protects it, but instead of protecting it, it actually does it harm. It's historically inaccurate. It has lots of bullcrap in it, such as whey. Potching was never made from whey. That's a recent invention. In fact, potching was never really made from potatoes at all. Potching is made from grain, in my opinion, and almost always was. I mean, particularly it's oats in there and malted barley and unmalted barley. So it's very much like an unaged pot still. So we've got our own mash bill for this potching. It's lovely stuff. It's very full bodied. And
could you share that mash bill with us?
Yeah, it's in fact, by all means, everything we do is about transparency in Killowen. So the back of the bottle actually has the mash bill written on it. So it's got the percentages of malted barley, unmalted barley, Maris Otter, which is another type of malts. We sourced a heritage grain, and then oat and wheat. So small amount of oat.
Could you read it out loud so we know the percentages?
Yeah. So but 69.2% malted barley, 23% unmalted barley, 3.8% Maris Otter malt, which is just a heritage grain malt, and 2% oat and 2% wheat. So we were playing around with our mash bills, and we thought that this was the most palatable one. It's also quite accurate with another recipe from illicit distilling from the area, which is important. And it's 48%. So for the Americans, what's that? Doubled to make it proof. Yes. So so it's good stuff, you know. It's at 96% proof.
96%, exactly.
So good, healthy stuff, you know. So it's also excellent. It makes the best old fashioned because whenever it's in with like those spicy notes and those real hearty notes, it just pairs very well. So there's a lot of really good cocktail makers enjoying this and being very creative with it at the minute as well. But for me, I personally just love it straight. It's delicious. Also an Irish coffee. An Irish coffee is brilliant with it, or a Killowen coffee as we call it. Top notch.
Kevin asks, are fusel oils good in the new make? If so, why in the days were they patenting stills like the Wallace that would reduce these?
Oh yeah, I think I'm not entirely sure about the Wallace still, but in terms of the patent stills, the more modern column stills, is that maybe what we mean as well? That they were introduced to create a very efficient means of creating spirit, which created grain spirit. So grain spirit is more like a vodka, you know, and but it's got very little oils in the spirit, you know. But for me personally, our pot stills are designed to capture as much oil as possible and make a very viscous spirit. But you're right, it's more about your cuts. If your cuts are too broad, or you cut too late, or you cut too early, you get a lot of bad flavors in there. So we always use our nose when we're doing our cuts. We're very careful about that. We want to make sure that our hearts are spot on. Even with our fermentations are done outside in the open air. We let them cool before we pitch our
wild yeast. Or do you add yeast?
Yeah, we add yeast, but we encourage as much bacterial and yeast infection as possible when it's cooling down, first of all. And it creates this lovely, tremendous bitter wash, this real bitter beer, which is full of flavour. And a lot of those citrus notes like pineapple, probably a brewer's worst nightmare, but for us it's brilliant because those congeners then follow through in the stills and create a much more complex whiskey for us.
All right, very good. Now let's go back to your pot stills. They are not very common. Where did you get them?
We got them in Portugal. So great guys were able to make them for us by hand. And they're Olympic stills, but they've got a unique head on them, a unique neck, which is more similar to a Northern European style neck. So it's a hybrid still. So it's flame fed. They're the only people we could find that would make flame fed stills. And then also in such a way that's a mixture of Northern and Southern style, which is at the minute pot stills tend to follow this one prototype from Scotland, which is good in a way. But I think the diversity of stills in Ireland at the turn of the last century was much more interesting than it is today. And for us, we just tried to bring this back, and these stills are going to create a unique spirit for a very long time because of that.
Now, you're in Northern Ireland. Why that area? Why not Cork? Why not Middleton? Why not someplace else?
Why are we there? I suppose this is where we're from. The Mourne Mountains is our home. The Mourne Mountains is a beautiful place. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty. It's where I'm from. It's where Liam's from and where Shane's from. And those are the.
Will Liam be joining us?
He should be. Liam's fond of a cup of tea at this time of the day. So might not. He might not. You know what he's like. So he's got the link anyway. So if he joins in, he joins in. But he wanted to come here as well, but a bit of social distancing at the minute. So
he can join in through his link, no problem. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about the grain. Where do you source your grain from? How much grain do you need? And how big are those pot stills actually?
The grain, well, the rye that we've used to date actually came from Ireland. It was Irish grown rye, and this was the first year that the rye was commercially grown in Ireland. And so we had a company sourcing that for us, which was great. And then after that, we've been sourcing peated stuff to an extent from Scotland, but more importantly, we peat our own. We peat our own on site. So we've got our on-site smokehouse. So we smoke as much as we possibly can. And there's Liam coming in now. He's watching that. Good man, Liam. Enjoy your tea. So yeah, we smoke and malt on site as well as much as possible. But it's a very laborious task. But we find that whenever we smoke our own on site, it's much more peaty than anything we can buy in, which is great. So there's no real consistency in our casks. Some might be a little bit more smoky than others, and because of our we rely on nature as well for our fermentations. Some of our fermentations are tasting different from each other. So that idea of a consistency across the board doesn't exist with us. In fact, it's quite seasonal, our fermentations and our distillations.
Now, David asked about your yeast. Do you develop your own? Did you buy something? What about your yeast sources?
The yeast, so we do a mixture, David. We keep some of our own slurry from the previous fermentations and throw it back in with the second. And we also add,
very good.
Yeah, and we also just add our own in there to top that up. So it's about 50-50. So it's efficient as well. It means yeast's quite expensive. And but at the same time, we rely a lot on bacterial and yeast infection whenever we're cooling the wort down. So we encourage the wort to cool down naturally outside when it's open to the environment. You'll notice that the lactobacillus bacteria up where we are would be in a different one from the loch shore at sea level, or maybe in the neighbouring town, or in Dublin or in Cork. So that idea of Ireland's famous for its regionalism, the difference in its accents and its dialects of the Irish language and people, and sense of humour and culture and song and everything, and we believe that that's the way it is with whiskey as well. All
right, so we know that you have different sources of grain. Tell me a little bit about the mashing. How do you do that?
Mashing is quite remedial. We've got a converted dairy tank, so everything in the distillery is converted or upcycled as much as possible. So we created a false bottom on it, and we mill on site, and all of our grain falls down in there, our oats, our wheat, malted barley, unmalted barley, and we've got 2 staff that work with us, and we get a boat paddle each, and basically mix it together and create Ireland's biggest bowl of porridge, and stir it for about an hour, and let it sit then for an hour, and then we draw off our wort. And yeah, it's quite efficient. We get a very good yield, and we get a very good workout as well. So it's good for the environment, less energy used.
Very good. So at the moment, of the big rage is hand sanitizer. Have you also made some this week, or what are you doing?
Luckily, there was because we're part of the United Kingdom, we teamed up with the British Distillers Alliance, and we lobbied HMRC in Glasgow, who relaxed their regulations because it's very well governed, the distilling industry, and the rules are very stringent, but they turned around and changed it very quickly so that we could make hand sanitizer, which is very much needed. We know a lot of nurses in the NHS here who are struggling. I don't know if you know it, we've got this crazy government here that have been running the NHS into the ground now for the best part of a decade, with very sinister ways of doing it. And they've seen this coming. We've seen this coming from China a long time ago. They don't give a shit. So it's up to the local community again to pick up the pieces. And all of the distilleries have been doing this. Acklandville, for example, have been doing a really good job of this. And they've been helping us out in telling us, how to source materials and bottles, because there's no alcohol, there's no bottles, there's no hydrogen peroxide, there's no glycerine, there's no bottles left anywhere. So we're all teaming together to try and get plastic drums and stuff. So this is the first bottle that we had, a little pot. It became a pocket sanitizer because it's the only bottles we could get our hands on. So this is made to the World Health Organization formulation, and that was recently approved by HMRC. It's a liquid, it's not a gel, but there is glycerin in it. And we've been distributing this as widely as possible. We live in a quite a densely populated rural area. It's hard to imagine. So there's regional towns everywhere. So we try to distribute it wherever possible to the district nurses in those areas who are wide open. They have no PPE at the minute at all. Pardon me. So yeah, there's a good solidarity with the local distilleries in the areas, but we can't keep up forever. We're a very small distillery, so we might have to start to sell some at the same time as giving some out to the nurses. So yeah.
So you can distill up to 80 or 90%, or how do you do it with your pots?
Yeah, we distill our pots, in fairness, only distill up to 70%.
Exactly.
So most times 68. So for us, we've got a license to buy in high strength alcohol. So we buy in alcohol at 98% or else 96%, and then we dilute it down using the recipe by the World Health Organization. In fact, you can't work with alcohol below that. So it has to be pristine alcohol that's coming in, and even that supply stopped now. So
yeah,
let's see what happens. But yeah, we just have to work with what we've got, and everybody working together definitely helps, because it's a really good distilling industry, especially in County Down. We've got great camaraderie amongst the other distilleries here, and we help each other out, and we enjoy each other's successes, and really want to make the area, the new distilling capital of Ireland. So looking forward to that in a few years.
Very good. So Greg asked the question, does the distillery intend to create single malts or blended whiskies or single pot stills or all of the above?
Yeah, so blending is a fantastic art. It's something that we really believe in. So blending and bonding is brilliant. It's enjoyable. So yeah, we focus on it. Making single pot stills is our primary goal. We also make very loose pot stills. For example, we made a pot still for charity a few months ago there, and it was 60% oats. So that's a unique whiskey, and it's probably the best spirit we've ever created, to be honest. We also done a 90% smoked rye, which was amazing, but we destroyed it in some casks that we thought would be good, which is an expensive learning curve.
Yeah.
But we're all about experimentation and bringing that to the fore, and hopefully releasing it in a few years. But one thing that we haven't done yet is a single malt. for me, a single malt is, to be honest, I think it's a bit of a fallacy that's been born out of the last century. Like, fair enough, single malt was being made, but by no means was it the whiskey of choice. Even in Scotland, it wasn't the be-all and end-all until whiskey legislation permitted it in recent years. Pot still was alive and well in Scotland as well, and I think people are starting to realise that now. So single malts are brilliant, and we actually might start one this week because we've got a lot of malt, but we've got no unmalted left, and we've got no oats left, and we've got no rye and wheat left. So out of necessity, we might have to distill with what we have and create our first single malt. And maybe we could call it the COVID series in about 3 years' time.
Okay. Very, very good. Mr. Kyle asks, any hint for what next for the bonded experiments or experimental series?
I think this time we're going to go across the Atlantic again and do something something from that region. The last time we went to the Basque Country, so we went to more southern Europe.
So tell me a little bit about the expressions you've so far put out. So you have sourced whiskeys at the moment as well?
Yeah, we did indeed. We sourced whiskey from Great Northern, which was originally distilled in. Sorry, I'm not allowed to mention names. We sourced whiskey from County Louth. And,
very good. Thank you. I won't tell John.
They were very good at helping us out. They were a brilliant distillery. The master blender and owner, he knows his stuff. He creates very good blends as well. So it consists of 5% malt and 85% unmalted. So there's malt and unmalted in there, but then at the same time, through probably the fifth person, we sourced our own whiskey as well, our own 12-year-old malt from County Antrim, and it's lovely stuff. It really is at cask strength, and whenever we merge the two together, nobody's done that in Ireland yet. I don't know why nobody has decided to blend the whiskies from County Louth with County Antrim. Maybe it wasn't working, but when we done it, it worked very well. We found the right ratio, we found the sweet spot, and it took a bit of tinkering to get there, and it's great. We put it into a selection of single casks. One of them didn't work too well, so we didn't release it, but there was we've got a range of beautiful casks there that are ready to go to the market, and but it's great fun. It certainly is. The first one was
working a little bit with David Watts, or who's your blender at the GND.
Yeah, we got Brian Watt. Yeah, give us good help there. He is good, isn't he? He's a very good blender. Yeah, he's a good guy. So, and he's very supportive of the industry's growth as well, which is great to see. Yeah. We have our first one was a dark rum cask, which was great. It was received very well. Whenever we release our whiskey to the industry, we don't. Some people talk about no chill filtration. At Killowen, we say no filtration whatsoever, straight from the cask into the bottle. If you get bits of char floating around inside your bottle, you're lucky. So just bottle it up and enjoy it. And there's John Donovan giving a bit of.
I like that. Right, we're kings, aren't we? So a little bit of the black adder. You have that little grate to get rid of the charcoal, but other than that, everything in the bottle.
Exactly. Get it in there. Even if it's a little bit of anything else in there, if it's a bit of foreign matter, it's fine. At the end of the day, it's been lying in a cask for, probably the most of that stuff's been in there for 12 years in high strength alcohol. So everything's perfectly safe. No added color whatsoever. Very much against adding color and chill filtration. And in fact, we're against dilution of whiskey as well. For us personally, our idea of a whiskey is that it should be cask strength and allow the consumer then to dilute it down. So I know we're only selling 50 cl bottles, but you're getting the same amount of alcohol in 50 cl as you would be in a 70 cl, and everything for us is small batch, And our second bottle, we've got one up here. They come in these little bags as well, which are ethically sourced. So a lot of things in the world today are made, using cheap labor, which is unfortunate. But there's a guarantee that this was ethically sourced, both socially and environmentally, which is important for us. And then we've got these, got this little bottle here, which is this is the Chocolina bottle. So Chocolina is, this is the dark rum bottle. Sorry, Chocolina. Oh, it's the dark rum. So you'll be able to see. I must have drank the Chocolina. You can see bits of floating around inside the bottle, which is yummy stuff. But if you can see the bottle, you see that everything's written by hand on the front. We've got handwritten, hand numbered as well, and at the top they're all wax dipped by hand, and the back of the bottle, the amount of units. So there's no equipment, there's no machinery used from start to finish in our process. Everything's done by hand. Even the bottles are done by hand. And, I haven't got my Chocolina with me at the minute, but the Basques have their own language, they have their own culture. They've got their own wine as well. They've got their own grape, which is indigenous to that part of Europe, and it's beautiful stuff. It's very tarty. If you drink too much of it, it can be quite aggressive, but it's a lovely wine. And we wanted something to age or to finish our whiskey in that would be very, very strong. So we like to age it and pull it out at the last minute just before it's overdone. And we find that, Chocolina is brilliant for that. It worked very well. But to add a wee bit more spice, literally wood spice and those fruity notes, we put virgin acacia heads on this Chocolina cask.
Oh, nice.
And so it just added a hell of a lot more flavour and a lot more spice and poke. So the lot wanted more of those vanilla notes, much more heartiness, and this one we found was much more lively and fruity. The last one would be a bit more mellow. But
are you doing single casks, or what type of size are your bottlings?
Everything's a single cask, yeah. So this series is single casks the whole way along. So we hope to do 5, maybe 6 max. And
a year or
every time we get a chance, we hope to release one this week, believe it or not. Okay. But this COVID thing just messed everything up. My staff are off sick, so it's just me and my own, and up there at the minute. So we have to rethink and just strategize what we're going to do going forward. And I was hoping to distribute it around the country, but I know today my sister runs a pharmacy in Drogheda, which is down in a neighbouring county in the Republic, and she got stopped on the border today. So they're now stopping people moving around for no reason, but because she was running an essential service, they let her go. So there's a bit of a lockdown now, so it might create difficulties in this next whiskey launch, but hopefully we'll release it in the next week or so.
Will you be expanding to other countries? I know you're coming to Germany soon. Monica Spitzer is your distribution partner with www.irish-whiskies with an s.de. What about France? Any plans on that?
No, not just yet. Hopefully we will go there, but I really can't wait to Monica Spitzer's welcoming our stuff into Germany. It's brilliant. We were going to go over to a festival there now next month, and that's been bloody cancelled as well. But look, as soon as there's any restrictions, we're going straight over there, and we're going to start. We've got a lot of friends over there, and a lot of people who are waiting for our spirit. So I just can't wait. So Germany, here we come.
Where exactly is the distillery again?
The Mourne Mountains are up a little lane called Kilfechan, which is in Killowen, in County Down. So it's a highland maritime environment, and it's overlooking Carlingford Lough, which is great because there's fluctuations in temperature all the time and fluctuations in air humidity. So there's a lot of quite fast aging in our casks. The liquid's moving in and out of the wood very quickly. So that whole idea, just that local area, is creating a very good aging for us, you know. And
usually you'll be double distilling, right?
100% always just double distilling. Can I just butt in with 3 myths of Irish whiskey? The 3 myths of Irish whiskey are: Irish whiskey is smooth. That's bullshit, number 1. Irish whiskey is triple distilled. That's bullshit, number 2. And Irish whiskey is non-peated. That's bullshit, number 3. So historically, Irish whiskey was just as much peated as it was non-peated. As well as that, Irish whiskey was double distilled, and sometimes it was triple distilled as but most of it was double distilled, you know. And what was the other one? Smooth. That was an insult. We suppose we had to survive, so we had to reinvent ourselves as something like Scotch's little sister or little brother, and we had to say smooth. But Irish whiskey was bold, it was complex, it was full body. That's what pot still is. It's thick, viscous, spicy liquid, you know, and it was eating and drinking and that sort of stuff. It's gorgeous, you know, and you can't call it smooth. It was never smooth. And anybody who's trying to make smooth Irish whiskey is not doing it any justice whatsoever.
And we may not forget, or you're not allowed to forget, that 1972 with Irish distillers, there was a monopoly basically, and even Bushmills became part of that family for many, many years. And they wrote the book on Irish history, or they rewrote the book on Irish history. Yeah,
they did, yeah. It's very true.
It's always through the eyes of Irish distillers, the company called Pinot Ricard there, yeah?
That's very true, and we have to take our hats off to them for surviving pot still whiskey at such a high standard. My favorite whiskies are made there, and they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal, but I think they're only scratching the surface of how good they can be. I think there would have been Irish whiskies of old that were nearly better. So hopefully, there's a lot of good work going down there. There's brilliant minds down there, and they do know their history, and they know that they can create great whiskies. They probably have some non-compliant pot still sitting about in those warehouses.
What was it? A €27,000 pound, whatever redbreast that came out recently was peated.
There you go. Exactly. Bring back peat. Bring back proper mash bills. Bring back the likes of the Bandon one, or even in County Down here, we had Cumber Distillery that used to make these lovely, fantastic whiskies as well. That was full of oats and stuff in there as well. And yeah, that's what you want. That's what you want. People, there's this idea in people's head, especially in Middle Europe, like in the Dutch, for example, are convinced that a blend is a bad thing. They're convinced that I know, and it's just common knowledge, which is wrong, unfortunately, and misinformation, and they think that a single malt is much more superior than anything else. And it's about educating the public, and we are getting there. It's not going to happen overnight, but pot still's on its way back, and as long as we don't release it too early and ruin the category.
Now tell me, how long are you mature, and what kind of cask are you maturing it in?
We're mostly we find our peated pot still works very well in PX sherry casks, but we're toying around with everything. We've got pot still laying in brandy casks, cognac casks. We've got it laying in red wine Pinot Noir casks. We've got it laying in rye casks, rum casks. We're playing with everything just to see. But I think the core for all distilleries is ex-bourbon and sherry. We try to deviate away from that, but we're working with different cask sizes, and we're also working with reused casks that have been spent almost, and very fresh casks as well, so we can vat them in together. But there's a massive mixture of different casks in the distillery. There's especially the ones that are most creative are the ones that are about to be released in the coming months as part of our bonded experimental series. We've even got a cask from Hungary, which is great too. Zoltan got us a guy. He's a bit of a whiskey celebrity. he's got his own. Yes. Yes. So he's got his hands in many pies in Ireland, and he's supplying us with these beautiful Hungarian oak casks that are made from start to finish by hand, no kiln drying. The guys who make them actually cut down their trees themselves, and it's beautiful stuff. They select the trees, and they know that in 5 years they're going to use that wood, and they let it dry naturally, and then they make it by hand. So it's a real craft, and the quality of aging is fantastic out of them. So yeah, looking forward to those whiskies as well.
Now, how long do you want to age your whiskies?
If you distill the way we distill, which is very inefficient and not so cost effective at the moment, the spirit stays in the still for a lot longer, and it's much more interaction with the copper, and it comes out much more palatable. Even though it's full of oil, it's still much more palatable. We noticed that it doesn't take very long to age at all. In fact, we've got whiskey that's sitting in our cask number 1 that we think is good for market, and that's after a year. I know that could change a lot in the next 2 years, but I think age statements are important. But I think that whole idea of an older whiskey being a better whiskey is another fallacy again, that people need to wise up. Just taste every whiskey on its own merit. Young whiskies can be fantastic when they're done right, and we think most of our whiskies should be ready for market after 3 years, and that's the plan.
All right, very good. Now, what type of casks? Do you have any bourbon casks, or are they all just basically ex-wine casks at the moment?
Yeah, we have bourbon casks as well. Yeah, we source them they're coming over from different distilleries. There's also some rye casks. We've got some, and then we've got the wine ones as well, white wine, red wine. We've got what we done as well. We whenever over Christmas period, I thought I could still work. My staff were off, and mashing can be quite laborious. So what we done was we got some molasses and some sugar in, and I made up some rum and distilled the rum. We put them into some of these nice casks, which were heavily charred Cabernet Sauvignon casks, which we thought would add a little fruity, punchy spike into it, and which was great. And it's aging nicely now, so hopefully that'll be something nice to bring to the market as well. And then we can reuse those rum casks ourselves for creating rum whiskey. So so probably red wine, white wine, rye, and bourbon casks.
Very good. Greg, I want to burst your bubble here. That red breast expression, I think there's one of 470 bottles worldwide. They're going for 25,000 pounds each or something, or euros. Nothing around 150 euros. I'm sorry. Not that world you're going to live in anymore. Sorry, that was 1955.
I know.
All right. Very, very good. So tell me about your core range at the moment. What could I buy from you, and where could I buy it?
So we can get poaching, and you can get gin as well. We can get any of our rum cask finish and our Chocolina cask finish. There might be a few bottles still out there just before we release our next cask finish, 10-year-old blend. You can get them online from irishmalts.com, which is very easy. Just click on the good bit of stock there, and shipping worldwide, very efficient, very quick, and very safe and reliable, which is important. And we have never had any issues with our own bottles, thankfully. So it's well worth a shout.
Okay.
And also, if you're in Germany, you can get it off irishwhiskies.de very soon. Probably, the pallet's probably there now. So
I think she said so. It should be coming out next week. Yeah. So she's actually watching, Michael was watching. Let's see if she comments and mentions when we'll get that. All right. Exactly. Very, very nice. Yeah. So
also,
will I see you?
If you're in Dublin as well, they can get it off the Celtic Whisky Shop, and most independent off licenses around the Northern Ireland area. We distribute it. We try to scatter it everywhere. We don't want sellouts. We want it lying in shops so people can just stumble across it in a few years maybe. So.
All right. What do you plan to do in the future? What are your future releases now?
I don't want to spoil anything just yet, but the next one, we're going back across the Atlantic Ocean for an influence over there again, a nice influence finish. And then
so you have a good distributor in the States.
We did. We're in discussions with one, and we've agreed to get over there. So, our cask is coming from across the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, okay, right. Other way around. Sorry.
But we are hitting the States. We are very soon, even though on a small scale. So I'm really looking forward to that. I suppose that'll be in June time maybe, or else July. So we'll be releasing more information very soon on that.
So Mr. Kyle says Irish Malts is a great service. My package just arrived actually here. I haven't even opened it up. I have the seaweed whiskey in there. So
very good. Yeah.
So products are on the way. Should be here by the end of the week, she says.
Brilliant stuff, Rika. Brilliant.
All right, very good. Got a good girl there with her. She's doing a good job here in Germany. Now, will I see you at the Whiskey Live Dublin 2020?
By all means, yeah. It was fantastic last year.
You were just absolutely surrounded by people there. It was almost impossible to talk with you.
Yes, it was brilliant. There was a good hunger for probably new thought, and I think I'm not just trying to create the whiskey that I want to drink. I'm trying to create the whiskey that other people want to drink, and we're always willing to talk to people. And I'm only sorry I didn't get to spend more time chatting with people, because the Irish whiskey industry is fantastic. It's worldwide, it's global. People from Germany and the States and Australia were all there, and all of our Irish colleagues too. And everybody's honest and appreciative, and it's a great community right now, and it's still growing. And I can't wait to go back to the next one.
Me neither. That's going to be a good thing here. Now, let's see here. I had one last question I wanted to ask you here. So could someone actually come visit you if they wanted to?
Yeah, we never turn away visitors. We are meant to have tours on a Saturday at 3:00. They're supposed to last for an hour. Most of them last over 2 hours because the time you get chatting and it's just it's always good to see people and good to see people who are interested in the distillery, and it's a good way to make new friends. And a lot of times people come and they come back again for another tour. They want to see what we're doing differently and how things have changed and how the stills have aged, because they're beautiful and shiny behind you there, but in reality now the flame has been licking up around them for a very long time. The wall at the back has started to get full of soot. So the joys of flame-fed distillation. Every so often we whitewash it again, and then the flame comes back. Sorry, somebody's looking alcohol gel.
So Rowan asks, have you a favorite age for whiskey, Brendan?
Age, I think all ages. Like this one here has got no age statement. It's my favorite whiskey, and it's definitely not a 10-year-old or anything like that. In fact, Peter's hasn't been going that long. My favorite whiskey at the moment, right now, I think, is probably this one, the Dunville's PX cask strength.
Oh, that was good.
We had it at a whiskey tasting the other night. Belfast Whisky Club, which is definitely the world's best whiskey club. Put up, Paul O'Kane put up that as one of the samples. It was fucking awesome. Wow. And I always go back to as well as the rum cask. I just think it's great. I love that. We're always trying to create whiskies that we want to drink, so it's good to go back to it and enjoy it. So for me, it's not about age, definitely not. It's more about the honesty and the story of a whiskey, and it's good to know what you're drinking, yeah.
Jarlath Watson gave me a little sample of that when I was in Dublin. That was so nice.
It is indeed, yeah. It's been long awaited, and I think every 5 years we might get to get something similar as it gets older and older, which is good.
Very good. So let me ask a couple questions about Irish whiskey in general. Where do you see the Irish whiskey industry in 3 to 5 years from now?
As long as we keep doing things right and we don't follow just this model of triple distillation, bourbon casks and then a sherry finish, if we just keep trying to be regional and keep trying to be different, then we can. There's a bit of bullshit going on in the industry as well. We need to cut that out. It doesn't do us favors in the long run. Might make a nice build up, but people can see through it. Well, maybe they can't. Yeah, maybe it's important to keep that going too. I don't know, but it's definitely going to keep growing. But I think integrity bottlings are the way forward, in my opinion.
I definitely agree.
And I think we need enough. So yeah.
You've actually answered this question here from David.
What for your whiskey? Oh, sure. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, Belgrove definitely. Which is a rye. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Irish whiskey is going to continue to grow here with such passion and nice people. Very, very good. Now, sometimes I take a look at the future, and sometimes I kind of see a speed bump in the future that's going to have to be avoided or somehow gotten around. What would be the speed bump here for Irish whiskey in the future?
Hopefully we change the technical file. The GI for pot still needs changed. It's a bloody disgrace. It just needs changed. It needs to be more historically accurate. I think the current excuse is tradition, which is a pathetic excuse. We just need to educate people that it needs to be changed, and then it will be changed.
Now tell me how and who in Scotland we'd have the Scotch SWA, Scotch Whisky Association. What do we have in Ireland?
No, we've just got the Department of Agriculture or the authority on the Irish whiskey. So the Department of Agriculture, and then there's different associations in Ireland as well. There's the Irish Whiskey Society, which are a group of dedicated individuals. They're a brilliant bunch. There's the Irish Whiskey Association as well, which represents a group of businesses. They also help the members out and create tourism trails for their own members as well. Yep. And outside of that, there's just independent people working on their own. So, but there's great camaraderie amongst them all. All of these groups do brilliant things for the for their members as well, and do brilliant things for the industry as a whole, and they do brilliant things for international growth, which is very important. So as they say in Ireland, there's no strength without unity. So everybody's moving forward together and doing a great job.
Very good. If anyone else has any questions here for Brendan, they can ask them. That's great. Now, your distillery, will you expand or will you always stay, I'm going to say, tiny?
Well, at the moment, we're going to stay tiny, but especially with this, probably we're going to have a year's worth of a recession ahead now after this. So, but honestly, I think we should grow. I think eventually we will double in size, which means we would have a sister distillery very nearby in the same area that would just be the same size, and we could do something maybe slightly different there, so the two could be juxtaposed maybe, or else very similar but some slight difference, I don't know, but they could be tasted together and you could recognize the similarities but at the same time the differences, and that's what I would love. Maybe one's flame fed and the other isn't, or there's a difference in the fermentations or something like that. But the same principles and disciplines, definitely.
All right. So now for us YouTuber and the entire social media community, what would you expect or what would you like to have more from us as whiskey tubers, as we like to call ourselves?
I think the content has been brilliant. It's always interesting. You can always go on and find something new. You guys are always an indication of what the public want, but at the same time, you're also influencers, which is great. So the likes of you liking Integrity Bottlings filters its way down to the uneducated consumer, and they become educated, and then they want the same discipline. They want that type of product, which is great. And but yeah, what we want more of, Muse. I don't know. Keep it going. It's been great so far. Jason, it really has, We're enjoying it.
So I would like to share very briefly at the end your website, if I may.
Yep.
Let me see here. There we go. So we have here the bottles, for example. You have your gin, you have your whiskey, you have pitchin. You have here your distills, which I have here in the back. You have here your warm tub condenser. You can click on that, and you actually get here more information, which is actually a great website. All that information is there. That's very, very good. Would you say you post a little bit more here to Instagram, or where do you post the most?
I need to increase the amount of social media I do. I don't really get much time, but I'd like to get onto Twitter more. It seems good fun. But I find if I post on Instagram, it jumps onto my Facebook as well, which is great. So both of them are related. And whenever anything I post online goes automatically onto the website too. So it's great that way. But yeah, hopefully I get more onto Twitter. It's great fun, and there's a lot of good whiskey knowledge on there.
Very, very good. So there's a tiny little Twitter Irish whiskey community even there with Barry and with Otmar. What is his name? Omar, exactly. Omar,
yeah.
He's wow.
It's good fun. There's a lot of characters, isn't there, in the industry?
Yeah, there are. All right, Rowan asked, and maybe this is one of the last questions here. Is it difficult to keep a consistent temperature with your direct fire stills?
In the wintertime, definitely. We've got these flues, which are going out the back, and the base of the still is a little outlet to try and bring oxygen in to create the flame at just the right amount. But see, when you've got a windy day or any storm, the autumn, for example, the autumn storms, the wind comes down and it blows out the flame, and sometimes you have to make sure the flame's still alight, and yeah, it's very difficult there. But you'll notice that they just heat up very slowly, so it's very inefficient heating process. When then a lot of the heating is just at the base and it's creating a lot of burning, which you never want too much of. But yeah, it's good. They're not 100% reliable, and they're not 100% efficient either. So that's it.
All right, very, very good. So of course, yeah. Please come on Twitter, Greg says.
Good man, Greg. Yeah, I will do.
Yeah. And I think there's a great bunch of people on Twitter. Tina also confirms these. And your cask experiments are very, very much in demand over here in Germany and also in mainland Europe. That'd be good. All right, great. So thank you very much for having the time today to talk to me in this very, very difficult crisis mode that you're in with all your help that you're doing for the community. Thank you very much. If someone has any questions, we can contact you on Twitter or on Facebook or through the website. I'm sure they can get in direct contact with you. And I hope to see you in person then in November if I don't make it up to Ireland before that. Let's see what happens, all right?
If not, I'll probably see you in Germany or something. So
maybe you'll be here first. That could be great. All right. Very, very nice. All right. WhiskyJason here. Whiskey from the viewpoint of the American here in Germany. Thank you very much for watching. Bye, folks.
Take care. Bye-bye.